Welcome to the fourth episode in a Legendarium series about vampires through the ages. In part 4, An Age of Blood, we will look at the vampire craze which spread across Europe during the late 17th and early 18th centuries. Until the 18th century, storytellers described vampires, or their equivalents, as swollen and of ruddy appearance. Blood-drinking creatures appeared throughout antiquity and the Middle Ages, but the word vampire, taken from the Hungarian word vampir, appeared for the first time in the 18th century. Previously, demons and evil spirits such as Lilith, said to be Adam's first wife in Hebrew mythology, drank blood to sustain an unnatural life. Yet during the late 17th and early 18th century, the modern vampire myth as we know it came into being. The people who lived during this harsh time, known as the Little Ice Age, endured recurring crop failures and famines. People weakened by hunger often fell to recurrent waves of the bubonic plague. All the while, religious conflicts raged across Europe, from the Spanish Inquisition to the witch hunts to all-out war between Catholics and Protestants. During this turbulent time, some explained their suffering by blaming vampires rising from the grave. Many could be at risk for becoming vampires. They included alcoholics, suicides, murderers, those improperly buried, or not buried at all. In times of plague, few received proper burials. Scientists, doctors, and government officials scrupulously recorded the vampire hysteria that followed. These included gentlemen adventurers who took sabbaticals from university positions or left them entirely to combat the supposed plague of the undead. Though accomplished and educated men, they shared the religious fervor and superstition of their time. These academics put together a vampire hunter's kit, which included a mallet, stakes, a crucifix, holy water, and the Eucharist. This kit included practical items as well, like rope, a crowbar, and a pistol. French church leader Dom Augustin Calmet wrote, "Hungary, Moravia, Silesia, and Poland are the principal theater of these happenings, for here we are told that dead men who have been dead for several months, I say, returned from the tomb, are heard to speak, walk about, infest hamlets and villages, injure both men and animals, whose blood they drain, thereby making them sick and ill, and at length causing death. The name given to these ghosts is opier, or vampires, which in the Slavic tongue means a bloodsucker." However, the vampire hysteria first erupted in the East Prussian town of Breslau. A local shoemaker committed suicide and then supposedly rose from the dead, strangling people in their beds. When the townspeople opened his grave, they found his fresh and blood-bloated corpse in the tomb. They cut off his head, hands, and feet. When they removed his heart, it appeared as fresh as that of a freshly slaughtered calf. After burning the remains on a pyre, they placed the ashes of the Breslau shoemaker in a sack and threw it in a river. Throughout the early 1700s, people carried out vampire hunts and killings on a regular basis. One of the most infamous cases involved a Serb named Arnold Paule, a peasant farmer and soldier who lived in a village called Medvegia. Described as a hard-working and pious man, he believed that a vampire attacked him on his way home from the war. To cleanse himself, Arnold ate some of the dirt from the vampire's tomb and bathed his wounds in vampire's blood. A few weeks later, in 1730, Paule died in a wagon accident and his family buried him immediately. Only 3 weeks after his death, reports of Arnold Paule sightings surfaced in Medvegia. The 4 people who made these reports died, and a panic began to spread. On the 40th day after Paule's burial, some townspeople opened his grave. Johannes Flukinger, an imperial army surgeon sent by Empress Maria Theresa to investigate these attacks, wrote of what happened next. And they found that he was quite complete and undecayed. Fresh blood flowed from his eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, and the shirt and the shroud and the coffin were completely bloody. The old nails on his hands and his feet, along with his skin, had fallen off and new ones had grown. And since they saw from this that he was a true vampire, they drove a stake through his heart, according to their custom, whereby he gave an audible groan and bled copiously. What horrors did the people of Croatia and Serbia witness? Could they have seen real vampires? Instead, the villagers probably mistook natural decomposition for signs of life. After death, the skin dries and begins to contract, giving the illusion of growing hair, nails, and teeth. The corpse swells as gas forms in the torso, pushing blood through the mouth and nose. This also gives the body a ruddy, almost healthy-looking complexion at times. Piercing the skin causes pressurized blood to spew out and gas to escape through the mouth, making what appears to be a moan. The scientific facts of decomposition gave fearful people struggling to explain hunger and disease a supernatural explanation, at least in their minds. Since many victims of plague rested in shallow graves, their body likely continued to spread disease, and burnings used to kill supposed vampires ironically did remove the source of illness. While the vampire craze largely died out by the middle of the 18th century, the numerous reports made about vampirism in Eastern and Central Europe affected the culture for centuries to follow. The vampire had come into European literature and would reach his height of fame in Count Dracula. Likely in part because of this, a belief in vampirism has persisted into the supposedly rational 21st century. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed this series. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.